Welcome to Goodwin Law Unplugged, Florida real estate and more. This podcast features candid insight from real estate industry professionals from all sectors. Your host, attorney Matthew Goodwin, a native Floridian and experienced real estate attorney, will provide his personal insight on legal matters and feature other professionals offering their candid advice. Whether you're a first-time homebuyer, seasoned investor, or experienced real estate agent, there is something for everyone. Thanks for joining us on Goodwin Law Unplugged.
Welcome to another episode. This is Goodwin Law Podcast, Goodwin Law Unplugged. And I have here my guest, Tim Guerrette. I want to tell you this podcast is aimed at educating the public, generally speaking, on real estate related issues, but also educating real estate investors, buyers and sellers, and real estate agents. And we bring a mix of different personalities on, whether they're inspectors or they're ancillary to the transaction. Today, I have Tim Guerrette. He's Captain Tim Guerrette. He works full-time with the Collier County Sheriff's Office, and he manages to also run a brokerage, a real estate brokerage that he got into more than 5 years ago. The brokerage may not exactly be that old, but he's been doing it for a while. And he had to come up with something to do for his retirement, and I think he nailed it. Tim teaches a real estate school, so new agents can come in and get their license through this pre-license education. He also just started his own podcast recently, 239 Uncensored. I want Tim to talk today about some of the challenges that he is dealing with, and so we'll just jump right in. So welcome to the show, Tim.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, man. This is really awesome. I just started my own podcast, like you said, 239 Uncensored. And being on the other side is actually really fun, but it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invite. That's awesome.
Well, no pressure. All right. Well, we won't be fully uncensored like yours is, but we'll keep it as focused as we can on real estate related topics. One of the things I wanted to ask you is kind of how you pull off doing all these things and doing it as well as you do. You know, you're the Capt. You have a leadership role at the Sheriff's Department, which in this time and age is probably in and of itself more than some people can handle. But you also manage to have a team of agents, and you're caring for your father also recently that was diagnosed with early dementia, I think it is. And you maintain your composure well, and then you're teaching people gun control, all these things. How do you keep it all together? Do you have a personal assistant? Do you have multiple assistants? Do you have virtual assistants? Is India on your payroll? How do you do it?
Well, that's a good question. I have this trouble getting to sleep. That's my problem, right? So I get laying in bed and I'm like, I could be doing this, and this is a waste of time. I think I can probably do this when I'm no longer on this earth. I can sleep some other time. But no, in all reality, I work, I'm fortunate. I've worked for the Sheriff's Office for just about 29 years, in law enforcement, just about 31. And I work, primarily during the day. In the evening, I do get a lot of phone calls. I handle those as they come in. But I sit down around 6 o'clock and I plug away. And actually, if you sit down and you don't have distractions, I know what it's like when you got little ones because I've been there. If you don't have any distractions within a 2-hour time period, whether it be either in the morning or in the evening, you can knock out a lot of work, and you just knock it out and you get pretty good at it.
You also do title boxing in the mornings?
Yeah, I do. I try. I haven't been here in a while. I'm getting that COVID. I think it was a COVID 10. Now I think it's up to 15 and maybe even pushing 20. So I got to do something different because it's freaking killing me. I'm gonna be in rough shape. I'll have to go see your wife, who's our doctor, family doctor. So I'll have to go see her, to try to get some, medicine to get rid of this fatness.
Not a bad idea. Not for the fatness, but for other ailments.
Yeah. So it's a juggling act. I actually take a lot of pride. For some reason, I don't understand it, Matt. And I think you're a very similar guy. I know you that. If there's opportunity, and it's not even about money, if there's opportunity, it's just, let's check it out and let's find out about it and let's push forward and do it. And the worst thing you could say to me is like, yeah, you really can't do that, and you're even, I get inspired by you because you always try to figure out ways to get things done. You're the same.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I definitely look up to you in other ways as well. Being able to juggle all this. You had your kids. You did it already, and now you're doing more. And so it's inspiring. What advice do you have for people out there that maybe they do just have one job, but they have the capacity and the desire to do more? I mean, what kind of tips do you have for them?
I think it's time management, without a doubt, being able to juggle time. I really don't sit down and watch a lot of Netflix and things like that. I will do it. There's times where, like today, this is probably the first time I've taken off since probably March, like just a day I can, kind of take off and chill a little bit, but I'm actually working and doing that. So I think the time management's important to make sure that, the thing is, you really truly have to find time for family as well, because that's important. But it's a balancing act. It really is. And I think if you could kind of teach people how to do things on their own, that's always a good thing. So like I said, I have 24 agents. I tell them, call me anytime you want. I mean, call me at 9, 10 o'clock. And that's one of the things that I can give them versus maybe another brokerage where you can call me and I'll help you. I'll actually go in there and knock the contract out. It'll take me about 25 minutes and I'll send it over to you. But once you do a couple of these, let's sit down and, show you how to do it. And it works out pretty good that way.
That sounds like you have it all figured out. Time management is key in all of our businesses. And I appreciate you sort of singling that out, because many people struggle with time management. It's a lot of it has to do with interruption management. So
right.
You're able to manage your interruptions, and, interruptions can suck the time out. And it may be a voluntary interruption, such as social media, which borderlines addiction for some people. And then, the TV series. I'm sure, if you look at Netflix's stock prices, I know they've soared over the COVID era. Granted, you have more kids watching it. So now, but you have more TVs on simultaneously. So you need to up those subscriptions. I try not to get sucked in. I think I got sucked into 2 series over the last 6 years, which is really minimal. If you ask anybody that watches Netflix, I'm really resistant to it. So I can relate with that. Finding the family time is another big thing that everybody wants to do, or at least says they want to do it, but everybody has a hard time doing it. Whether you blame it on your circumstances. Well, I don't have a stay-at-home wife. I don't have a mom that's going to take them everywhere, or I don't have time and my wife works and we don't have any relatives. I mean, you can make a million excuses, but it all comes down to time management or managing your interruptions. But I think in order to be effective, that you have to write it down or put it in your calendar instead of just trying to manage it on the fly. How do you schedule? Do you have one of those paper calendars, or you use everything digital?
Here's a deal. And I've missed a couple meetings with you before in the past, but I tell you, I get up in the morning I wake up, I should say. Don't get up, wake up about probably 5:30. And the very first thing I do is I look on my phone and find out what I got to do for the day. Cause it kind of dictates what I'm going to wear, what I'm going to do, who I'm going to meet, who I'm going to see, and, how fast I need to get moving and get my butt out of bed. So, that's been the gym helped me do that before, but now I'm like, I think I just sleep another hour. I'm good. I need it. But the time management, I definitely use the calendar on my phone. And when that thing pops up, the worst thing that can happen though is when you have that short reminder, like 15 minutes, and you're like an hour away. That just doesn't work too well. So I always try to put the reminders like a day ahead. It definitely helps me.
Yeah, that's a good point that you mentioned. We have so many ways of reminding ourselves now, but when it comes to the digital calendar, no one's going to remind you for the paper calendar. So one reminder is better than none. But if it's too late, then it's completely useless. I select my default reminders 30 minutes before any event, unless it's the day prior. But to try to do it, 2 hours, because then you'll forget. If you do it too far in advance, you'll forget. So you need more than one reminder.
That's true. Yeah.
I tell some people that work for me and that I've worked with in the past, I don't care what you got to do. You got to tie a string around your finger, write something on your hand, do whatever works for you. For the love of God, don't use sticky notes everywhere, because you'll have to remember to pull those sticky notes down. I remember, I've used sticky notes in the past, so I am somewhat guilty of it. Some people are excessive with it, right? I had maybe 3 sticky notes on my monitor, and when I finally looked down, I was like, I got to just get rid of these things. One of them was completely irrelevant at this point. One of them was something I really should have still need to be reminded about, but it sort of had no deadline. And something else was maybe a phone number, right?
Yeah.
So we have all these reminders, but they sometimes you still have to remember to do these things, and having a good system. I think first thing in the morning is helpful, I'm sure.
Yeah, my thing is I'll set reminders. Like I'll talk into my phone all the time, and my dad, who's got, like you said, dementia, so in Alzheimer's, working through there. So he looks at me when I talk on my phone, like, "What are you doing?" He thinks I'm talking to him. I'm like, "Hey, Dad," I'm just, and he thinks I'm crazy, and all I'm doing is trying to set an appointment. I use like Siri a lot, but I find that is kind of strange too, because you end up correcting yourself on Siri. So, people's like, "Hey, use Siri. It's easier." But I find myself, if I just send it, people are going to think I'm crazy, if I send a text on Siri. So, but I constantly do those reminders. Those are huge. Like if somebody tells me something at 9 a.m. and they say, "Hey, could you check into this?" I'll do a reminder for that day, because if I don't, I just have so many things going, like everybody else. I'm no different.
Right.
Just try not to forget it.
Tell me about this real estate school that you started.
What I did, that was about 2 years ago. I got interested in, maybe I like teaching. So that's what I enjoy doing. I do a lot of it for law enforcement. I've done it throughout the years. And I got saying to myself, hey, I think you learn about things much better when you teach it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I do. When I teach it, I actually delve and get into the material, and it's pretty fun. I mean, I really like it. So what I did is I started out of school, and we've had about 4 or 5 classes. We have about 14 or 15 on average each time. We actually just finished a Zoom class with 22 people. I did it with Lucy Q from up in Fort Myers. She's a motivator. She's got her own school. I got my own school. So what we do is I'm licensed to teach at her school, and she's licensed to teach at my school. So we kind of just trade off. I really don't have the time to do all the marketing and all the paperwork portion of it. So what she does is she just says, "Hey, listen, we got 24 students. We work out a payment thing for them. They pay up there, and then, I'll jump on the Zoom." And I think since they've allowed to do that, the state has allowed us to do that. I don't think I see us ever going back away from it, because if you think about it, they let people do online classes, and you can do it at your house if you want, versus this Zoom thing where you can actually at least hear somebody try to talk and explain some of the principles of real estate. So it's worked out really well. And I'm going to be building a studio that's going to have a room in it that's designed for this to, use, a couple podcast rooms and things like that. So that's kind of like the future, I think. And I'm going to let my, real estate agents use that as well.
That's exciting. So you wanted more, but you felt like starting the school would immerse you more fully in the materials that you really should know as a real estate agent and a broker to begin with.
Yeah, again, it's another silly thing that I did, that I jump into, and then I like I said, I had to come. I've kind of slowed up a little bit, but this online thing's really cool, because before, one of my challenges was being away from home with my dad at home. I pay for a nurse for him all during the day, so I kind of had to slow up on all this stuff. But being somewhere close by, because my dad, he takes care of himself, he's fine. He just can't be gone. You can't be gone for long periods of time with him. But
yeah. Well, I think, many people are burdened, and some people it's more burdensome than others with caring for their parents as they age, and whether they have a mental issue that they're dealing with, or, something else, and whether it's depression or not, it can be draining. So I think it's inspiring to know that you're able to, in the midst of all that, get it together, keep it together. Many people would be able to appreciate hearing that and be inspired by it. I'm not going to focus much on how you do that, particularly just the fact that you are able to do that and do everything else. And you don't just do things halfway. From my vantage point, at least, you're diligent when you are handling a real estate transaction, and that takes thought. Tell me some of the ways that, when it comes to real estate in particular, that you consciously decide of going the extra mile. Give me 1 or 2 scenarios.
Yeah, perfect example. I just had a closing with a customer from Fort Myers, right? Super nice people. fairly elderly, but just super, super nice. When I got contacted from a friend, and like I tell everybody, they give me a referral. I mean, I treat them like family. They're going to be my family. So until this house closes and beyond. Well, they came down and they're very concerned about the COVID. They wore their masks. We did all, I brought my own Clorox things. I brought a whole bunch of different things to make them feel comfortable. We went looking for houses. When we found the perfect house for them, it worked out great in Livingston Woods. And they called me about everything. They wanted me to get them the pool guy, the water guy, the lawn maintenance guy, the tree guy, the guy that they wanted to install a gate. So I got all that stuff lined up for them. I made phone calls. I met people out there. This is prior to closing. So I'm like, hey, we're going a little fast, but I know this house is going to close. And,
right.
I did pretty good on it, but that felt good to me because I'm thinking to myself, listen, this could be my mom and dad in a situation where they don't have the contacts and they don't have the people. And what's it really going to hurt for me to make a phone call at lunchtime to, try to get a gate guy over and give him some prices? A generator, right? There's another generator. So I think trying to help people all the way through, not just sell the house, go to closing, get your money and see you later. That's one thing. And then another thing, and Matt, is we never make money unless we close this thing. So I find myself a lot of times trying to get with the other agent and say, hey, listen, buddy, we need to get an extension done, or we need to get this done. Try to stay on top of it as best I can. And then your client appreciates that fact, and they call you call them right back as soon as you can, because that's important to them. That sale on that house is like the biggest thing on their mind for the time they buy it and the time they close on it. I think you'll agree with that.
I do. Yeah. And that there's a fine line that can be drawn of how much work you do that, quote unquote, you're not being paid to do. Right.
Yeah.
And that's where going the extra mile comes in and sets you apart from the 6,000 plus realtors, not in our local board, the Naples area board. It's hard to stand apart. Referrals are everything. If you have to spend money and time cold calling or even making warm calls, it's still a grind. So, work smart, not hard, by going that extra mile. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I try to do the same thing with the agents, being the broker. If you call me at 12 o'clock at night, it doesn't happen often, but I've had them up to 11. We're sitting there, trying to figure things out. And, you're good about that. I don't keep throwing back at you, but I kind of learned from that too. The reason why I tell my people, hey, let's use Goodwin Law for, this title, because I've had such good experience. And I call you, and it might not be, I've called you with things that had nothing to do with your deal on it, but I'm like, hey, can you help me on this? And you always been there for me. So that's important. But when you do that and you have that relationship with somebody, who are you going to go to? The guy that doesn't call you back? No, I'm going to go with Matt. And then when Matt needs me, I'll be there for him. That's how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. You have to go out of your way sometimes to be responsive. So, and you have to have realistic expectations with the responsiveness. I can't remember. I was talking to a colleague of mine recently, another lawyer, does real estate transactions, works for a big law firm in town. And he told me that this world that we live in now, everybody expects an instant response. And if they don't get a response to an email in an hour, they're emailing you again. And that is not an exaggeration. And it's unfortunate. And what he tells me is, you try to return calls by the end of the day. Okay. If you leave the office at 6 and you haven't been able to return that call, either call them at 8:30, send them an email, say, I didn't get a chance, or do it first thing the next day. I feel like that's the best thing that you can do. If you truly are unavailable, then have somebody that can make that follow-up call for you, whether it's a personal assistant or a relative, even, a husband, wife, or someone else that you work with. That's where teams can really come in handy. And it sounds like you have a tag team with your real estate school, and that was a really smart decision. My wife's a physician. When she has a concierge practice, concierge doctor is supposed to be on call all the time. You have to have your on-call person that can respond to things. Otherwise, you'll never be able to take a vacation or truly disconnect. I want to ask you a couple things. We're running a little bit short on time, and in respect of everyone who's listening's time as well. Just jump right in. Tell me, how has COVID-19 affected the way you do business, if at all?
Well, you know what? It's kind of interesting. The first couple months, I think, like everybody else, everybody was paralyzed. I remember getting home and going and watching news. Put on the news, and I'd go there at 6:00, and I would turn the TV off at 10, and it was really truly paralyzing everybody because we didn't know if we're gonna die of this stuff. And I don't want to minimize this COVID-19 as far as it. I mean, when it hits people, I mean, it'll knock them down and in some cases kills them. But for the most part, most of the people that have it, or most people who have had it, have some symptoms, have some flu, have a couple bad days, and for the most part, they're getting through it. So I think initially, when everybody didn't know what to expect, it paralyzed us, and then things are kind of actually getting better. Right now, as you know, the inventory in Naples for houses, whether people don't want to sell or they're kind of don't know what's going on or what's going to happen, and they're unsure, they're not doing a lot of moving, but people are they want to go out and look at houses. It kind of just shocks me, but it's been really good. But I think once we get over that initial fear that things will be okay and all that, I think it's kind of settled out a little bit. And I believe, we might have a little bit of a second wave and things like that. But for the most part, it's been really, really pretty much business as usual after those first couple months.
Everybody has been infected a little bit differently from it. And it's hard to know someone's comfort level. What we do is we try to, gauge the comfort level before we have people come in and sign in our office. And if they say they don't want to sign in person at all, then we set them up with a remote online notarization. And that's the way things are going. I'm really excited about our closing software that has just rolled out a built-in RON, remote online notarization feature. And the way things are going, like you said, real estate classes now you can teach on Zoom. That's unheard of, right? Because it's supposed to be in-class instruction.
Right.
So now you're in class when you're in front of a computer tuned into a Zoom call. Who'd have thought that was going to happen 9-10 months ago? So do I like it? Yes, only to a certain degree. I really miss the human interaction. You can read body language, but when you're at a committee, I'm on a couple committees and I've sat in on some big committee meetings where there's 25 plus people. You have 25 little mini cameras. It looks like kind of like the Brady Bunch commercial where they're all about doing something different. It's kind of like that. I don't know how you're able to have a dialogue, but more troublesome is the interruption. You can't have crosstalk, period.
Right.
So it makes meetings take longer. Now, if you're the instructor, you can just mute everybody. So that's great, but you can't have collaboration with more than a couple people. And I've even seen it fail with a few people that just like to talk.
Yeah.
You got to wait and forget about it if there's a delay. Anyhow, I hope that more opportunities continue to open up for us to do business with everyone. So we're not restricted to the only ones that are willing to meet in person. I see that happening. We've been using Zoom for about 2-3 years now, and excited now that more people are open to it. It saves them a trip, and it saves us sometimes a trip from going physically into the office, whether you have children at home or you have someone you're caring for, or you're out of town. Now it's more acceptable to do business remotely. So what about these remote showings? Have you done any remote showings?
I have. I've done a couple of them. We did it on FaceTime. We were just walking through and, hey, this is the kitchen, and here's this. The problem is everybody at the end of the day is going to want to see that house, for themselves. It actually kind of adds a little work because we got to go out there, open it up, do all that stuff, and then you really it's easy for the client to sit back at the house and go, hey, go show me 3 houses, instead of getting out and going, doing it themselves. And at the end of the day, you're kind of you think they're going to buy it? Well, I don't know if they're going to buy it because they only saw it on their iPhone. And, but what it is, it keeps them excited, keeps them going. A lot of that stuff is great for people out of town, hey, go show me it. And we put on the, FaceTime or, do something. But I agree with you. Like now, I think businesses are going to be more effective because of this at the end of the day. Some of this virtual stuff, because I know I never ordered anything out at Olive Garden, and I went up to Olive Garden the other day and I'm like, I'm going to do this every time. I just pull up, guy comes out to my trunk. I didn't have to move, give him my credit card. As a matter of fact, it was already paid before I got there. It was fantastic. So before I would have never done that,
I experienced that too. I said, I'm not sure how I can get used to COVID, but I sure can get used to this curbside delivery.
Yeah, exactly.
And my mom is a waitress actually on the East Coast, and she works in a breakfast establishment. They serve breakfast and lunch, and it really affected her business because people want to sit down and eat breakfast. It's never the same when you get your eggs to go, right?
Right.
So, it doesn't work for every industry, but hopefully it's short-lived. I got one last question for you, and I just what 3 tips can you leave the listeners with when it comes to selecting a real estate agent or brokerage in your case?
Yeah, this is actually really easy. Okay, I think, and it's gonna strike some people a little bit weird, but I'm gonna tell you, you call somebody on the phone and they pick up the phone and they answer it, or they call you back within a couple minutes. That's a good first start, because I will tell you, in Collier and Lee County, there are 6,000 agents, and I will tell you that probably 5,500 of them are not going to call you back, or if they call you back, it's going to be down the line. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think a big thing is, being able to be readily accessible. You mentioned it, an hour is probably unreasonable, but for a call back or an email back. But when you call and you want to make contact with somebody, you want somebody to be there and pick it up. I think that's a good one. I think that's a good precursor to find out if this person's too busy for you or if they got something else on their mind. I think that's important. I think experience is the key as well, but take the right experience. As well as I do, there's people who've been real estate agents for 40 years, but are they really the people you want to buy it or sell your house with? Because just because you've been working in the real estate world for 40 years doesn't make you a good, real estate agent, or a realtor or whatever, name you'd like to call it. So again, talk to that person, find out. I know I watch a couple people on Facebook, they blow it up and they're young and they push and they've got all kinds of things going, and I'm jealous of them. I'm like, I want to be like them, because they're selling houses, they're posting houses, they are movers and shakers, but they've probably been doing it 2 or 3 years. So it's not always the guy or gal that's been there 40 years is going to sell your house. Find out a little bit about them, And then I think last but not least is make sure that they have time for you. That's the key, and it kind of goes back with, the first couple. Make sure that you're working with somebody that's going to, spend the time. And if you ask somebody to go look at a house and they're saying, yeah, we can probably do it like maybe next Thursday, and it's Thursday now, and you're talking about a week. It's like going to a car dealership and the car dealer telling you, hey, you'd look good driving out of this thing next month. You'd look awesome. Car dealer wants to do what? They want you driving out of that car dealership that night. Matter of fact, they get mad if you go home that night, because what happens? You start thinking about it. And I'm not trying to say it's pressure sales. It's more about, hey, somebody called you and they want to look at a house. Let's go either today or tomorrow night. Let's go do it. Because if you wait and kick the can down the road, obviously if you're out of town and you're busy and things like that, that's all understandable. But if you're kicking the can down the road, it's somebody you're probably not going to want to work with, because they're not going to get everything done for you.
That's clearly been working for you, Tim. So I appreciate that advice, that, communication from the outset, responsiveness at the outset, that first phone call or inquiry, and then, having time to give you when the tires hit the road and you say, can we go now? We had experience recently where we called a listing agent, want to see a house, and feel like we were really fighting to see that house.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I know it's not an open house today, but you want to sell it, right? The agents that say, yeah, go ahead. Now it helps that I have my license, because if I don't have an agent with me, sometimes I'll they can just say, go, yeah, it's vacant or whatever the case is. But in this case, it was like pulling teeth to try to get a viewing. So that's good advice. Where can you be reached if someone wants to call you about a real estate transaction or a real estate school before they get their license?
Yeah, the best, my real estate school is Florida Pro Real Estate Academy. My brokerage is Florida Pro Realty. Used to be Naples Pro Realty, but we kind of gotten bigger now, which is cool. But you can contact me at tim@floridaprorealty.com. And you can, get a hold of me at the school, same email address. And, we're, like I said, with these Zoom classes, I think we have another class scheduled for September 28th through September 28th through October. I think it's like the 8th. So they go pretty quick. Everybody seems to have fun. No stress. People are, able to stay at home with their kids, and, the kids are kind of screaming sometime when they're taking the class, but it really works out well for everybody. And we, it's real good. It's been nice.
Good. Well, listen, anybody listening out there that doesn't have their license and wants to get it before the season gets hot here, as if it hadn't already, then you can get your licensing done with contacting Florida Pro Real Estate School. Thanks again for being on, Tim. I appreciate your time. I'm sure I'll talk to you soon. You have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, Matt, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. It's a great podcast. I'm looking forward to hearing it. And again, 239 Uncensored. I can't wait to have you on. That's going to be great.
Thanks for listening to Goodwin Law Unplugged. To learn more about Goodwin Law and to utilize our services, visit GoodwinEstatelaw.com or call 239-207-3403. Hablamos Espanol. To submit questions or be a guest on a future episode, message us on our website or on social media by searching for Goodwin Law PA in Naples, Florida. This has been Goodwin Law Unplugged. Thanks again for joining us.